and I'll try and do my best to entertain you. The first story is entitled By Any Other Name. Her name was Rose, and she was one of the bravest people I ever knew. There are many stories I could tell you about her life, dozens, that could convey her life, her bravery, her strength, her inner character. I could tell you about being the oldest girl, growing up in a small Irish family of 9 in Brooklyn. She was the oldest girl, and then she became the surrogate mother for her own siblings when her own mother passed away at the age of 45. I could tell you about her efforts, how she had to try and get away from this, and she married the first man she could, and to escape, and unfortunately found him to be an alcoholic abuser. And she ran home after only a month to find that she was pregnant. I could tell you about her next marriage, growing up, raising 4 sons, how she lived her life, how she struggled, how she worked hard to support her family on $12 a week allowance given to her. I could tell you about the sacrifices she made when that marriage ended, and she worked to support her kids and her siblings, who she was still a mother to. I could tell you many stories about her life and about her bravery. But what's most important, and where that was most clear, was at the end of her life. Christmas of 2009, Rose's family gathered together in Brooklyn to celebrate the holidays. She wasn't feeling well. Rose was someone who didn't like to let people know when she was ill or when there was something wrong, because she never wanted anyone to worry about what was going on with her. She was always more concerned with everyone else's well-being rather than her own. So she made sure her family had a great Christmas holiday. The grandchildren had a wonderful time. Everyone was well taken care of, except for her. Time passed over the next few days. She wasn't feeling any better. So she was forced by one of her dearest friends, Mary, to take her to a doctor and say, let's go see what's going on. The doctor, upon initial examination and just very few tests, said, I think we need to get more testing done at the hospital. And so that's where she went. And at the hospital, where they began more testing, they said, Rose, you're a keeper. Keeper? Yes. No, we can't let you out just now. You're going to have to spend some quality time with us. She never called her children. She never called her siblings. She never called her other family members. But Mary did. Her best friend Mary made those phone calls and said, you've got to check out and check in on Rose. She's in the hospital. She's at Methodist Hospital in Brooklyn. It's a good hospital, but find out what's going on with her. And so the day came. More tests were done. Unfortunately for Rose, she was diagnosed with AML, which is acute myeloid leukemia. And for those of you who know, AML is a blood-borne cancer. As tough as it was a cancer that was going to finish her. She didn't know at that time she only had 6 months to live. And yet, she knew. Her main focus, her main concern, was not her life and was not her death, but how is everyone else going to take care of themselves? What can I do to make everyone else's life easier? So, when doctors and nurses would come in to visit, they would say, yes, Rose, is there anything we can get for you? She'd say, yes, Crystal, do you think I could have a glass of water? Or, yes, Shaniqua, could you get me a new pillow? Or, yes, Mavis, do you think you could maybe bring me something a little different to eat today? You see, she didn't just think about her caregivers. She thought about their names. She wanted to recognize them for the hard work that they did. You see, Rose worked in a nursing home herself and was always caring for elder people. She was a dietary aide. She lived a life of service and service to others, and sacrifice to herself. And it never once bothered her to give more. It only bothered her if she felt that someone didn't receive enough. As her illness progressed, she would walk around in her hospital room telling dirty jokes to all the doctors and nurses, because that was her style, that was her way of doing things. If she could get a laugh out of someone and a smile from them, her job was well done. And so that's how she continued. Even at the very end, as her illness got worse, I was staying in her apartment in Brooklyn. When I got a phone call from her doctors, they said, "You need to come. You need to come now. Her temperature's 104, and her blood pressure is about non-existent. Come in." Mary and I jumped in a cab together. We didn't know what to say to each other, but we knew that we had to say something for her. So we gowned up, masked up, got to Mount Sinai, where she now was, walked in the room. I didn't know what to expect. She turned, she looked at me, she said, "Hey Tom, how you doing?" This was not the reaction I was expecting to get from her walking in. I said, "I'm fine. How about yourself?" She says, "Yeah, pretty good. Got more platelets. Feeling pretty good. Temperature's normal. Blood pressure's back up to normal. Everything's fine. So, what are you up to today?" This was her style. This was her way of doing things. Even sick. Even hurting. Even 3 days away from death. She was thinking about others. And at this time, she was thinking of the last thing that she had to do. Her youngest son, Kevin, who was estranged from the family, was living in California. And she knew he was now coming in to see her. He was flying in on a Tuesday. This was a Saturday. So, her last goal in life was to make sure there could be settlement of peace between him and his siblings, to get the family together one last time. And so, she waited. During those last few days, I had the pleasure of spending that time with her. And oddly enough, something that I might think is terrible, she did. What might that be, you ask? As she was losing some of her lucidity, she would lay there in bed and she would be having conversations with people that were not in the room. Who were those people she was talking to? Her co-workers. She thought she was back at work. She thought she was back in the nursing home. And I could clearly hear her state as she's laying in bed and she's putting things on an imaginary tray. She said, no, there are 3 applesauces per each tray. She was talking with her coworkers and laughing. She laughed. She said, "I don't believe that." And she'd smile because she was doing what she had always done and what meant the most to her, which was giving to others. I think if I was in my last few days and I was thinking, this is the end for me, and my mind was wandering that I was at work, I would consider myself in hell. Not her. Not her. She thought she was doing a good thing and was having a good time. And she did. She did. She kept that smile on her face. And she kept laughing. And that's what struck me the most. And then she would wake up and I'd say, "Do you know who I am?" She'd look at me, she said, "Yeah, you're Tom. Why?" I said, fine, just checking. Okay, just checking. Her youngest son, Kevin, made it in. He made it in on Tuesday night. She wasn't very much aware anymore, but she could still respond, generally. He got to make it in, and he got to say his last words to her. The words that they said will remain between them. She passed away the next day, early that morning, comforted with the knowledge that she was able to bring her children together one last time. She wasn't sure if she could, but she did. She was waked, she was cremated, and then we took her ashes out on her sister's boat. And we went out into the Atlantic, off the coast of Brooklyn, by Coney Island, where she grew up, and we scattered her ashes into the water. And there were roses that were thrown in the water behind her, and they created a beautiful trail going out into the ocean as she was making that one last trip, the one she couldn't make, to Ireland. And we all thought, what a day. This October day, and the sun was out and shining where it had previously been cold and wet and rainy. Having Rose shine down on us one last time, knowing and comfortable and happy with the idea, she did what she wanted to do. She was a giver. She was a teacher. She was a friend. She was my mother. And she was one of the bravest people I ever knew. Thank you. When Rose passed away, I eulogized her at her memorial service. It was something that was very tough for any of my brothers to do. It was something that was very tough for any of her own siblings to do. But I got to spend the time with my mother, and we had a couple of very good, solid conversations. And I wrote this poem in her honor. And at that poem, which is based on conversations she and I had, I recited it then. This poem is called I'm Not There. Look not for me in the cold, cold ground under a marble marker, for I'm not there. Do not seek me in antiseptic hospital hallways. I'm not there. If you look to find me in the ocean depths, you will learn that I'm not there. However, look for me in the afternoon sunshine, for I am there. If you feel the rain falling on your face like tears of joy, you will know that I am there. Under clear, starry night skies, I am there. But mostly and forever, seek for me in the warmth of your loving heart, for I am there and always will be.